Ladies and gentlemen, DB&A Television is proud to bring you a Roar Media production, the nation's #1 digital coaches show. If you do not know him, you better Google him. He was a high school Hall of Famer, school record holder, 10-time letter winner. He was just a boy with a ball and a young man with visions of greatness from the land of Hoosiers. When his playing days were over, he wanted to give back to the game that provided him purpose. He had found his passion on the hardwood. 14 years college coaching, multiple regional and conference championships, multiple national rank programs, coached the National Player of the Year. Winning followed him to 15 seasons professional coaching, multiple championships, multiple Coach of the Year honors, near 780 win percentage. He placed over 100 players to their respected national teams that represented their countries at the World Championships and Olympic Games. He has coached current and former NBA stars. His purpose is now to serve, empower, inspire. Here he is, host of the Coach Scott Field Show. Make some noise, show some love. Host Scott Field.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. No matter where you're watching us from around the globe, I say thank you for allowing us into your home and into your lives. I'm grateful. If you're watching us on DB&A TV, hey, it could be Roku or Amazon Fire. A sincere thank you for the use of that platform. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you're listening to us in podcast form, I say turn that knob up and let us put that flavor in your ear. If you're watching us on Facebook Live today, let's use the hashtag 3-time NBA champ JP. Send in your questions, your comments, and your emoji reactions, and don't forget to share with your basketball friends. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to lace them up with another edition of the Coach Scott Field Show. Super excited to have my friend on with us today. As I mentioned, he's a 3-time NBA champ with the Spurs in Coach Pop. He's a 4-time NBA finalist. Boy, Joe, I could go on and on forever with all the accolades you've had. Over 1,000 regular season wins, over 100 playoff wins with the staffs that he's been on. Coach of the Year with the staff with Pop in 2003, and then with Coach Avery Johnson with the Mavericks in 2006. He was also the head coach of the Great Britain national team, also former interim head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, husband to Laura, father to Luke and Emma, my friend, Coach Joe Prunty. Coach, how are you this morning? And thanks for being on the show.
I'm doing great, Scott. Thanks for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you as we got to talk for just a few minutes off camera here. And it's always great when we can have an opportunity to connect and see each other, because, boy, I can remember this relationship goes all the way back to the NBA Summer Leagues when I coached a young man who just won a championship in Beirut, Lebanon from your Spurs, Julius Nwasu. And he was like, yeah, look up Coach Prunty. He's a great guy. You'll really like him.
That's great.
And here we are today, right?
Exactly. I love it. I love it.
Oh, this is fantastic. Well, Coach, again, I appreciate your time. Sure. I know there's a million other things you could be doing. You're busy. You got a lot of things that you're juggling. What's been the most enjoyable part of your coaching journey?
It's a great question. Probably the people. I mean, I've had amazing experiences, and all of those experiences and the things that you've alluded to have been incredible. But the people that I've been able to meet and the opportunity to experience things with them and go through some journeys that are pretty special. I think that's one of the things that if you're not in it, you don't understand sometimes, is that it's a journey. It's all going somewhere. And even if you win an NBA championship or a championship at any level, whatever it is, you're still thinking about, okay, how do we do it again? What's the next thing? And you do take your time to embrace those moments, but you still start focusing on, okay, how do we get better? What's the next thing? And all those experiences come with the enjoyment of being with the people that you celebrate those moments with or share the tough times with and grow from there. So to begin with, even when I was just starting out, and some of the things that just pop in my mind, some of the high school coaches that I worked with, my brief stint in college, some of the people that I worked with there, and then obviously through my NBA career, I've just met some amazing and special people.
See, I've got to agree with you. It's hard to explain to those who are not in the industry, but we really do have a great fraternity of people, and the relationships that we build through this journey, coaching the game of basketball that we love is truly something, spectacular. And to value those friendships, because those friendships are something that are not superficial. I mean, they are genuine friendships, and you get to see their families grow. And so I agree with you 100% on that. Um, Speaking of some of those friendships and relationships, who are some of the people that really impacted you in your journey, early in your journey?
Ooh, early in the journey. I mean, if we were just talking straight NBA, obviously Coach Pop was huge in my growth and development. But if I go even back further from there, and even if I go in reverse order from that point, Coach Hank Egan was amazing for me. He had taken a job with the Spurs and was probably a big reason, if not the reason, I got my opportunity to join that organization. But that stemmed from a family relationship that it's too much to go into, but Coach Egan was very helpful. My brother had helped him with some things and so on and so forth. And so our family had known him through the years, and he was just amazing to help me with my growth. You can go back to coach like Mike Hop, who has been an extremely successful coach at St. Augustine High School in San Diego, was at the University of San Diego with Hank Egan. And you talk about character, you talk about how you want people to exemplify, or an exemplary person. That's what Coach Hop is. And he's amazing, not just for the high school kids that he's come in contact with, but the parents of those kids, the kids that he coached in college, and the impact that he had on me, or continues to this day. Again, I can keep going back. I worked with another coach, Coach Jim Tomey, was one of the first coaches that I worked with in my career, kind of gave me my start. And that stemmed through a relationship with Randy Bennett. So these are people, again, that you talk about early in my career. This was a lot of that was pre NBA. And again, like I said, in reverse order. But, again, the guys like Pop were amazing. And I can keep going down the line with some of the head coaches like Avery Johnson, Nate McMillan, Byron Scott. You mentioned some of the guys that were, when I worked with them, coach of the year. Some of those other guys were also coach of the year, even before I got to work with them. And some of them that I've worked with, I think could have been or should have been coach of the year as well. So again, it gets back to what we talked about a few minutes ago about people. Just been very fortunate and blessed to be with some amazing people.
And I want to follow up on that because, Coach Pop is still doing a phenomenal job. That culture that he has built and created there with that Spurs franchise, and that coaching tree that Coach Pop has so successfully branched out. And you see so many lives that he has impacted in a positive way, either on or off the court. And I definitely wanted to get into that. What were some of the first real life lessons? I think you were a video coordinator with Coach Pop, but what were some of the first things that he taught you about being a professional at that NBA level?
Well, I think one of the first things that always stands out to me, and there's so many things from a basketball and non-basketball standpoint, but one of the first things that stood out to me was just the balance that you need in your life in this industry. You can get chewed up and spit out very quickly, and so you have to have a level of balance where you can almost, this, Scott, it's impossible to get away from it. Like, there's always something you can do. You can always watch film. You can always be working out a player. There's things that happen off the court, whether they're functions, team functions, whether it's a clinic that you need to go do for the organization. There's always something that you can do. But one of the things that he always reminded us was, we're going to work hard and we're going to work smart, but we also have to take time to break bread and have dinner or spend time with your family. Make sure you're taking care of those things. And that was as big as anything, especially early on when you're just trying to figure it out and you're like, let's go. And as you go through the process, meaning this, I should say this journey rather than this process, you see where you need to take time. Like, you can be better when you take a moment to catch your breath. And that was, you may not know it right away when he's telling you, but you learn it as you go through it.
See, and I think that's great because I feel like being around Coach Jerry Sloan, may he rest in peace. We lost him, this last year, but being out here and being able to observe and consult with Coach Sloan for 2 years, I know the respect and admiration that he and Coach Pop had for each other. And you talk about longevity and loyalty to a franchise. It's phenomenal. But Coach Sloan was the same way. I mean, he came in, he was hard nosed, he was hardworking, but yet he also found time. But hey, when the game was over, it was time to shut it down. I thought, that's phenomenal to be able to have that choice and skill set to say, okay, we're going to work hard while we're here, but yet when it's time to go have a glass of wine with Coach Pop, or they find that balance as you spoke about. So I'm glad to hear you kind of elaborate on that. And you and I, we share a lot of common interest. Family is very important to us, but we also know and understand and respect the international game. I mean, you've been a head coach of the Great Britain national team. I've got flags all over my studio here of all the countries that I've been able to coach and had success in. Why do you think it was so important for the Spurs how they embraced international basketball? Because you look at Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, and the list goes on. But I mean, it seems like Coach Pop grasped that international concept and incorporated international basketball before everybody else caught on. Why do you think that is? What was that insight?
I can't tell you exactly why he did. I just know that he had experiences prior to, obviously, even before I had met him, with international players in the international game, and even in his life, international things that helped him understand. I don't want to say the world. That seems too big in this context, but maybe that is it. Maybe it did help him to understand, and understanding that basketball is played at a high level, maybe not the NBA level, but it's played at an extremely high level. And Spain has the ACB, and you could go on and on. And there's no question, I've been blessed to have a lot of international experience. I mean, doing what I did recently here with Team USA was amazing. But that experience lets you know that there are great players playing all over the world, but they all aspire to be to the NBA because it is the best league. So I think for him, his experiences with some of those players or some of his travels within the game, and maybe Coach Nelson, maybe Coach Brown, he obviously, Coach Pop would be better suited to answer for his experiences.
Yeah.
But it showed, like you said, and guys like Rasho Nesterovic came in and helped us be very successful. Hito Turkoglu, and as you said, that list goes on, and there's too many players to name. We couldn't name them all. But he's embraced that for a long time, and now you see it in the NBA across the board. The level of success that the vision that somebody like Pop had for bringing international players in, the vision of the NBA in terms of looking at what the Dream Team's impact had for basketball around the world. You look at, like, for me, I mean, for as good as Tim, Tony, and Manu were, what a special treat it was to go to Dallas and work with a guy like Dirk Nowitzki. And with all of those guys, the one thing that it comes back to, phenomenal players. They're unbelievable, right? To top 50 in that group. They're amazing people. They're amazing people. And so again, some of the stories that I think of at times aren't always on the basketball court, or if they are, sometimes they're just maybe it's a workout that we were doing and something happened, or I learned something. Things like that are immense in my learning ability. But again, part of that was the vision of the international game and the experience to work with amazing people.
Yeah, let's dive into that. Let's talk about when you're with the Dallas Mavericks and you've got a Dirk Nowitzki who, helped transform the game, because now you've got a face up four who spreads the floor, but yet was so creative, had that little, fall back, one legged. What did you pick up from a Dirk Nowitzki in your workouts or your personal trains with him that you're like, wow, Dirk's onto something here that we haven't seen before? But what did you pick up from Dirk?
His work ethic, I don't want to say it was unparalleled, because the other guys that we've talked about, the David Robinsons, Tim Duncan, Manu, Tony, the work ethic was right there. That's why they're great players. But Dirk's had a different level to it. He worked a lot with a gentleman by the name of Holger Geschwinder, who is unbelievable basketball mind, extremely unique in how he approaches it. And Dirk's workouts were that. There were a lot of times where he would say, hey, what do you want to do? And I'd give him a few things, but for me, it was almost more beneficial to see him embrace what he had done and his routine, so to speak, that he had developed, or he and Holger had developed together. So there were different strides that he would take into shots, and he would go slow motion, or the range at which he would increase his shot from maybe inside the paint to all the way out to half court, and he'd be shooting the same style or the same form, the same technique. He would do, jumps across the floor that just for building his strength and getting his balance and core right. The amount of effort he put into his workouts, even to the degree that was amazing. But even to the degree that Coach Avery we talked about, do we slow down some of our shoot around, because Dirk does shoot around for an hour, then afterwards gets in another hour, then comes before the game and gets in, whatever pregame work, which again, I don't want to go into too much into that, but it would not be a light workout, to say the least. And then he'd play the game. But that was, again, to watch him do these things and to learn and to see different techniques. And it wasn't just seeing what he was doing, it was understand why he was doing it and what it made a difference for him and his ability to do the things he did on the court.
And see, I think that's a great point, because I can remember I was coaching head coach of a pro team in Germany. I was coaching the team in Ulm, and we go up to Würzburg, where he was from.
Right.
And here's Dirk's sister, who was playing at the professional level, who was playing a game before ours. And so there was kind of a buzz, about Dirk. And yet, here's his sister, and I watched her play, and I'm like, you know what? This gal is skilled, and Dirk is going to be special because he had that work ethic. Because there for a while, the label on European players were, they're just soft. They don't want the physical game, yada, yada, yada. But yet these guys come in, and with their training and with their work ethic and with how they would approach the game, they're so fundamentally sound. And, they are good shooters, but yet their spatial awareness and their court vision and their savvy, I think, kind of gives them a unique advantage over some of the American players who aren't as fundamentally sound. Now, American players are more athletic, but these European or international players coming in, they just had a great work ethic and were never entitled.
Well, I mean, I think it's hard to say it's one way or another. I think you get that all across the board. And what I would say is that the game has evolved over time. I know when I was a kid, you had, like, college basketball might have been in its heyday when you have, Patrick Ewing and Akeem Olajuwon. And again, the other thing you're talking about is centers that like they were centers. You had dominant inside post presence.
Back to the basket kind of play. Yeah,
exactly. So it was different. But the point is, you had guys going 3-4 years of college. Now guys are coming out earlier, pretty much across the board, and there's a lot to be learned. And I think one of the differences would be in the international game, as I've kind of helped start this mentorship business here recently, actually over the last 6 months, and I've got a few clients that I speak with internationally. So again, it's part of it is my experiences as an international coach, but it's great for me because I'm also learning some things from them. You have these club teams that they're starting out at 10, 11, 12 years old there. And it's not a club team where you're playing for this club in your city and then you move to your high school team or your grade school team or whatever, or you stay with this club. Yep. And so your growth in a club could go from 10 to 25. So for 15 years, you're in one club. And obviously if they're teaching the right things, there's some positive things that can come out of it. Whereas here, sometimes you're playing with this club team, or then you're with another travel team because things didn't work out, or maybe they did and you had a better opportunity here. And before you know it, you don't think about it, but you've been in 5 different programs, including your high school, your college, before you're a certain age. But I think one of the things, the other part that I would say is, through the years, everybody's always said, oh, the international players, they're such great shooters, or this and that. I think shooting's at an all-time high, period. Anywhere you go, I'm loving watching the NCAA tournament right now, because there's times where I was like, I'll watch a team that maybe I hadn't seen before. I was like, he's taking that shot. Oh, now I know why. And so I'm learning a lot as I'm watching some of these things. But again, I think the game of basketball is just continued to grow and evolve, and it's not going to stop. There will be something new that will come along too.
Yeah, and I think that's great that we as coaches, that we embrace that change and we embrace that transformation, and we evolve as coaches and teachers to help the game continue to evolve and put players in a position to be successful, which you've always done a great job of. Kind of wanted to go in another direction, because you've been in many chairs with the NBA. How do you feel analytics has changed the way coaches take data now?
Well, each guy's going to be different with how they do it and how they utilize that information. But clearly, there's a wealth of information that's coming faster and faster. When I first got to San Antonio, one of the debates, this is 25 years ago, so one of the debates was, in Europe, they were already fouling to not give up threes, or whenever the 3-point, and here,
or to stop a fast break, or
right, absolutely, you use has become the Euro foul, which is which ironically in Europe you now have, or in the international game, you have to be careful of committing that foul, because they'll call an intentional. And whereas here, it just is whether it's a clear path or not in the NBA. So it's again, the game continues to evolve. But I think we've gone on different topics here. So let me get me back to where our main point was here.
Well, yeah, we're talking about how analytics has changed the way coaches use that data.
Yeah, because I was definitely going to go in the wrong direction.
No, you're good. You're good.
What I would say is, with all these little things that have happened, with whether it's the changes in how you foul, when you foul, doing this, that, or the other thing. I'll give you another one, and then I'll get off it so I don't lose track again. But there are teams in Europe that will actually, if they are, let me see if I get the scenario right. They are down. They are winning by 1. They will foul with 15 seconds left to let you shoot a free throw. Even if you go up 1, they just want the ball back.
Okay, yeah, they want the last possession. Yeah,
exactly. So that's another new debate. So again, bringing it all of that stuff and all of those examples to analytics. In San Antonio, we were using analytics, but we just didn't call it that per se, meaning we had Tim and Dave in the back, okay? Meaning somebody's on the perimeter, they're driving it, here's our help side defenders. Pretty good help side defenders. So Pop had devised a scheme that said, okay, this is the way they're going to drive. You guys know they're coming this way every single time. You guys are going to be in help position, and we're going to say either they're not going to shoot a three, which again, the three wasn't as prevalent, but they're not going to just drive it and get to the rim and be uncontested. You've got Tim and Dave back there. And so after Tim and Dave block one or two of their shots, now guys are going to say, okay, we'll shoot the mid-range pull-up. Okay, well, what were we forcing the mid-range pull-up contested to? We just didn't sit there and call it that and say, oh, the analytics say you force the mid-range contested too. And so what's evolved from there then is some teams have gone on to say, okay, well, then we just have to shoot more threes. And we're just going to shoot as many as we can. And that's going to be the difference. And so again, the numbers, the analytics say, okay, well, it's this way and that way. I still think the game has an art to it. It's not just a science. The players have to go out and make plays. And so you have to be careful if you're looking at the analytics and it says, I could have, 10, 15 years ago, I remember looking at a player and it said, this guy drives the ball baseline every time. So then I'm watching film on him of the most recent games and it's like, well, shoot, he's going middle. He's going, he's going baseline. He's going to his right hand. He's going to his left hand. Probably looks like he's better going to his right. And I'm going through it. So then I went back and I looked at the first few games of the year because this was about 15 games in, and I looked at like their first 10 games. Well, at the time, they had played San Antonio, Dallas, Cleveland, and two other teams that all forced to the baseline. They didn't allow you to get middle. So if you just looked at the analytics said, hey, this guy drives at baseline every time. Well, no, that's not true. They were playing teams that all forced him to go that way. So you have to look at the film and realize, okay, this player's really talented. This is what was presented to him. This is how he reacted to it. But when it wasn't set to him that way, he was going to his left, to his right. He was shooting step backs going left. He was all the way to the rim going right. This was what his game is. Now you have to fit that into your system. And if you're a no middle team or a pack line team, then you figure it out. But you have to understand players' tendencies sometimes can be dictated on a piece of paper based on what they're playing against. That's right. The visual, the eye test will tell you something different. So analytics is huge. I'm not saying that it's not. I'm just saying that there's an eye test and that there's an art to the science as well.
That's right. And I'm glad to hear you say that because I guess I would be considered an old head where I feel like if we do a good job with coaching and with our preparation, we'll put players in a position to be successful, which will drive that data that's going to come in, either offensively or defensively. So I guess I do see the importance of analytics, and I do see where important decisions can be made based off of the science. But yet, like you said, great coaches who have that eye for talent and eye for evaluation, eye for scouting, you can kind of dissect and take and interpret that data that you receive to make the best choice for what your game plan is going to be against a certain player or a certain team.
Right. And that's where I've, as an assistant coach, as a head coach, I've had some great discussions with analytics departments within the organization or within the program, because they are, it's valuable. It's invaluable to a certain degree, but it's also understanding the why as to what these numbers mean. And so again, where I got sidetracked earlier is we were talking about whether you're fouling or not fouling, or what it was 25 years ago as opposed to what it is now, like where it's just, I'm watching a college game last night and Memphis defended Boise State almost perfectly on an end of game play from the standpoint of Boise's bringing it up. There's 13 seconds on the clock. They run a play. They execute it. They're about to get the shot, and the Memphis guy commits the foul right at the time, like with 3.5 seconds, 3 seconds on the clock. And you got to be careful. And it's something that you have to teach, because you can say, hey, we're just going to foul the guy. But how many times have you seen Damian Lillard or Steph Curry shooting a 3 at the end of the quarter from the other free throw line because they know the guy's going to grab them to commit that foul. And exactly, that's the genius of a Damian Lillard or a Steph Curry. That's like we talked about earlier, their ability to shoot, their ability to process what's going on and think through it. And so even though the analytics say foul, well, you have to teach that as a coach. How do you foul? When do you foul? And so that's why earlier it was like, okay, where are we going to go with this topic?
Right. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought me back to the analytics, because the analytics are very important. And as I said, I've had great discussions, but it's how you apply it too.
You're right. And like I'm saying, that, that top 1% of talent in the NBA, their presence of mind to know and understand the game situation. Oh my gosh, that's what blows me away. And I think the casual fan doesn't quite get that until you see it through a coach's lens, and then you're like, that's a phenomenal play.
Sure. Well, it's also, I think there's things that the casual fan may not see that you all like. You sit. Everybody always wants to ask you at playoff time, who do you want to play?
Yeah.
Well, okay. I want to play in the NBA playoffs. It'd be great to play this high school team from over here because I think we're a lot better than them. They say, no. Come on, who do you really want to play? Look, you start watching film of these teams, they're really good. And
That's
so
right.
you can look at a piece of paper and the paper says, well, you've won this many times against them, or this has happened, or that's happened. I'm telling you, you start watching film of the teams that you're about to play, and you're realizing these guys are really, really good. And they're bringing not only the skill set, but the mental aptitude to be competitive in a playoff series. They're bringing things that are going to make it harder on you than they might have during the regular season. And part of that is the analytic equation. But there's also, as you said, that percentage of players that the game has slowed down so much for them that they see it well before it happens. And I'd say there's a lot of guys on each team that have that ability. The younger the team, the less experienced the team, then the less that it's slowed down for them. The more veteran the team, it just makes it easier for them.
And see, I love how you said that, because it's so factual that these experienced teams, and that's why, like right now, when you watch the college game, these mid-major programs are strong because they have more experience, 4 and 5 year guys on those mid-major teams, where they're not the one and dones, where they don't have the experience or the knowledge or repetition to where, like, hey, Father Time is undefeated, but the great ones do know how to slow the game down. And I love to hear you say that.
Yeah, no, I think I don't remember when I heard him say this, and I don't know LeBron at all on a personal level, but I think that's one of the most, his ability to pass the ball has always been amazing to me. But I think that's one of the things people want to talk about, how strong he is, or how big he is. His mind is, I don't want to say unparalleled, because again, I've been around some great people, but
Yes.
that may be the greatest part of his game. And he had a comment, I don't know when it was, last year, but he said something to the effect of, like, the 35-year-old LeBron or the older LeBron wishes he could have taught the younger LeBron some of the things that he knows, because it would have made the game easier for him. And like I said, I'm paraphrasing for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely wouldn't want to put words in his mouth at all, but it's clear that he recognizes that the experiences that he's had have helped even shape him to this point, to where maybe he feels he's more efficient or does things even better now than when he was younger. And that was really amazing.
Yeah, just because of that experience and knowledge that he has. So, that's what I'm saying. Experience is the best teacher. When you're out there playing at the elite level, like they are, and being challenged every night the way that they are, you're not going to throw a defense at them that they haven't seen, or, but again, just try to make them uncomfortable to get them to do something out of rhythm or out of character is kudos to a defensive scheme or a game plan. So it is great to see and hear and listen to what these guys say, because if you truly listen, and if you're a student of the game, you absorb that like a sponge and you try to incorporate that to help your team become better. And I love that stuff. Great nuggets there, Coach. And again, you've been around some phenomenal players in your career. I mean, I think of, you had Duncan and Robinson, but Manu, and, Tony Parker, but also Avery Johnson when he was still a player and then got to be with him as a coach. And then again, Jason Kidd, also a head coach as a point guard. Do you think point guards have an easier transition to being coaches and teachers because they see the floor differently and they're kind of an extension of the coach on the floor?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I understand what you're saying, and that might help them. It
Hmm.
might help them because they have the ball in their hands so much, and so they have to see not only what their role is, what everybody else's role, but I don't know if it makes it easier. I don't know. Like, again, one of the names that had come up recently, and this is just watching the NCAA tournament as much as I have, is Patrick Ewing's done a phenomenal job at Georgetown.
Yes,
And
he has.
and has been an exceptional coach at the professional level as well. And you can ask any of the people. I don't know him. I haven't worked with him. Obviously, if I saw him, I'd say hello, and I think he might say hello back to me in terms of recognizing who I am. But we're not. I've never spent time with him, but you can't argue with the success that he's had with different NBA teams and the people that'll talk about how great he was with them. And now what he's done at Georgetown and the run that they went on here during the season. And again, it's been a tough year for everybody, or a unique year for everybody. But I've worked with several players through the years. It doesn't matter what positions they played. When I first got into the league, it was one of the first guys that I worked with that was a former player was Paul Pressey, in terms of, the original point forward. But
Yep.
and a great coach, and has had a tremendous career, and obviously has won championships, and he's worked at the professional and the collegiate level, and has had success at all of them. And I can't name everybody.
Oh,
But
yeah.
like one of the most recent guys that I worked with was like Corliss Williamson here in Phoenix, and
Hmm.
what a great basketball mind. And the experiences that he has had as a player and as a coach, but with who he's worked with, who he's played with. And he's a great coach. Greg Foster is the guy that I worked with in Milwaukee, another guy who's had college, NBA experience. Obviously, again, successful player, was in Utah, had success there, won a championship as well with the Lakers. So again, I think there's a tendency to say, well, point guards this and better. I think, people who understand and study and work at the game are gonna benefit from their effort that they put into it. I do understand the point of having the ball in your hands and knowing what everybody's role is, but I can also turn around and say, hey, some of the best defenses out there are because the center is the back guy protecting everything,
That rim protector. That's right.
and sees it all,
Yep.
right? So,
Hmm.
I think people work at it in different ways and become successful or take different paths to get where they are.
Yeah, see, I think that's great because again, I think about the coaches that you've had the opportunity to be around and learn from and, spend so much time with. It's phenomenal to think of the knowledge and the experience and the ability to communicate. And uh, it's just been fun to watch you from afar and see your growth and development and how you've evolved. And I've always been so proud of you to see, you and how you've impacted staffs that you have been on. So for that, I say congratulations and continue the work. I'm also excited to see some of the guys who have got or had a lot of NBA experience who are now coaching back at the college level and have great success because I think they've taken those experiences and their ability to teach and communicate effectively and identify roles and hold players accountable. I think do a great job also at the NCAA level, like you said, Patrick Ewing, and you look at Eric Musselman, who's done an outstanding job with Arkansas and Nevada. I mean, these guys are just consummate teachers. And so to me, I feel like they do a great job because they inflict a will with that energy and enthusiasm and that knowledge, and those players see that credibility from them being at the NBA and to have that success. Do you agree with that?
Well, what I would say is, again, we're always shaped by the experiences that we have. And part of that is, it gets back to what we ultimately talked about at the beginning, is the people that we share those experiences with. And so I'll give you another example, is a guy like Juwan Howard. I was with
Oh,
Juwan in two different places, Dallas and Portland, and his level of impact was incredible. And this could be doing a drill in practice where he just by his very nature upped the intensity of the drill and made younger players better because of the things that he did. And I'll guarantee you some of it was intentional, because he was looking at it like, hey, this isn't right. These guys got to learn. And so I'm going to do it. And so from a coaching perspective, you just sit back and say, Juwan, do your thing.
yep.
And,
Do you?
and then, in Portland, the impact that he had on guys like Greg Oden, and, Greg obviously was impacted by injuries, which is unfortunate. But I know a guy like Juwan who was initially the thought was, hey, he can give us some minutes and help us out with Greg and his development, turned into a vital role on a 50-win team. Like our bigs in our second year were two rookies, LaMarcus Aldridge and Juwan Howard. And Juwan was, extremely, I would say, I don't know his exact age, but it was clearly towards the end of his career. And so, but his ability to step into a game and impact it still was high. And we played him a ton of minutes. And again, we won 50 games that year. Now, we had a lot of other special players. Like I said, LaMarcus was on the team, Brandon Roy. Again, can't name everybody. But
Yeah.
I think when I remember one of my experiences with Juwan, it was, what do you want to do when you're done playing? Because you can do it all. Like, it was, meaning, do you want to go into coaching? Because you can do that and you'll be very successful. How far you want to go will be determined by what you want to do. So do you want to go into management? Because you see the game and see players, and not only can help them on the court as a coach, but off the court, if you wanted to be a mentor and kind of be in a management position. I said, shoot, if you want to go into broadcasting, you're
the personality. Yeah.
well-spoken as anybody and as quick to the thought process as anybody I've ever been around. So, like, what do you like? And I could go on and on. Like, he would,
That's right.
if he wanted to get out of the industry and do something else, he would be, his presence, like when he walks into a room, the way he carries himself. He's just without even thinking it in a basketball terms, he's just a professional. And so I've been very excited to see the success that he had in the professional level, and obviously Miami. But what he's done at Michigan in a short amount of time here, and I get it, Michigan has had good teams, but what he's doing and what they're doing now and what they're going to be doing in the future is pretty special, I think.
Oh, I agree.
And it's not just, I think it's not just, and again, this gets back to who he is. It's not just about what they're going to do on the court. Yeah. These young men are going to have success in their lives because of somebody like him.
Yep. He'll definitely impact the lives. I love that, and you talked about those Portland teams, Coach Nate McMillan, of course, has had success everywhere he's gone. And now you see what he's doing with this Atlanta team. Kind of changed the culture at a flip of a switch, it looks like, and got those guys to buy in and made subtle adjustments to really, impact that franchise. And I think Coach Nate has done a phenomenal job, and he and our relationship goes way back, but I'm excited to see his success as well. So I'm like you, I'm a fan of these guys, these friends of ours that have great success, and it's fun to see the little things that make it go.
Sure. I think that's the part that probably gets pushed aside sometimes, is that there's so many little things. There's like, people tend to look at the big things and say, okay, that's why that happened, or that's why. But like, I put an edit together years ago, that there were the shots or the plays that everybody remembers. So for example, what would be a good one? I'll give us a Spurs one. We're playing Houston in a regular season game in '99, but it was one of those NBC games that was, middle of the day, important playoff seeding. Houston was kind of the team that had been the dominant team in Texas at that time. So it was, trying to, in the Texas Triangle, trying to get past them, but, they had Barkley, Pippen, whatever. And Mario Ellie ends up hitting a massive shot. And this isn't, like I said, it isn't a playoff game, but there had to be 25,000 people in the Alamo Dome. Like I said, national TV. Mario hits a three, gives the kiss, the whole thing, like big game, right? The play before that was Scottie Pippen shoots a shot from the right wing. Great shot, a good look for him. And it literally does the where it hits the rim and bounces back and forth like 2 or 3 times, and you swear that it's going to go in, but it doesn't, and it bounces out. And no one remembers that play. No one remembers that. They just remember Mario's shot. And you can go to bigger games, like I think it was Steve Kerr's shot, the play before Steve Kerr's shot to win the game for Chicago. The play on the other end is a Shandon Anderson missed layup. I think it was Shandon Anderson, where you could make an argument, was there interference? I don't, there wasn't, most likely, but the point is, if that ball goes in, then Steve Kerr's shot is, we don't know it as it is. Yeah. And so there's all these little things that add up to the big shot or the big play that got you to that moment. And they're important too. And right. So I'm giving you basketball examples, but those other examples exist across the board.
Yeah, see, I like that. And just the little details, like you say, that butterfly effect
yeah, exactly.
of the game. So I think it's wonderful. How about, again, we're talking about international players, and gosh, Coach, we're just scratching the surface on the depths that we could go. But I'm enjoying this conversation because, man, it's fun because you get it, and I get to learn and be a better version of myself because of our conversation. The time that you were with Giannis Antetokounmpo, now that you see his growth and development and the player he's become, how early around him did you know he was going to be special and unique?
Right away. I think that's one of, I've been, like I said, I've been blessed to be with some great coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches, just some really, really amazing basketball minds and people. Jason, Coach Kidd, his vision and how he wanted to help players grow and help them is special. Like, he has a vision of how, not only what he wants it to be, but also how to help guys get there. And I think with Giannis, and there were other guys too, but with Giannis, I think he looked at him and we looked at him like, this kid has certain special God-given talents that can help him, but he's barely scratching the surface right now. I mean, even to the degree that I remember going back and trying to find an article or anything, like, what were people saying about Giannis? Because there were a lot of people in the league that knew what he or who he was, and that this kid had the potential to be something. But I just went and tried to find different articles. And one article that I found, I think right around either before the draft or right after the draft, said that he could be a nice rotational player on a very good team. And I get it. The draft can be, you don't know. It's an unknown, so to speak. But I remembered reading that article, and I sat there and I thought, the vision that Coach Kidd and the staff had for him, and the fact that he had, done so many things, like a 2-time All-Star, the people that he had been introduced to help him grow. Like, you could see the trajectory. And this took time. Like, this was not an overnight thing. Like,
Right.
the things that he had to learn and grow with. And it's a tribute to him. It's a tribute to his work ethic and his desire to be the player that he is. But early on, you could see that there were things that, okay, this is what he could become. And we just have to get him on that path and show him the things that he needs to do to get there. And you do that with all players, I believe, is that you have, like, that's what player development is, okay, you start to work with them, you learn them, you get to know them as people, you see what's the vision for where they can go, and how do you now get there? And then it's a process for you working with them as a staff, as an organization, and them as players to continue to work to evolve, to grow their games. And that, like I said, Giannis has been on that path for, since we got there. That was like, okay, there's things that we have to take away a little bit. We'll bring them back, but it's right now, to help you get here, we've got to go this way first, and we'll take these steps. It's kind of like, in San Antonio, Tony Parker one year became the best. I think he was the #1 player in the league finishing in the paint. And that was the same year that they essentially said, we're going to have him shoot less threes. So, and this was like his 8th year in the league, or maybe not that far, but maybe 4th or 5th year in the league, where the idea was, okay, shoot less threes, attack, get downhill, get into the paint more. And all of a sudden, people weren't talking about that he doesn't shoot threes. They're like, wow, he does. Like, look at what he's the #1 finishing player in the paint. And definitely, if he wasn't #1 of all players, he was #1 for point guards for sure, and shooting at a ridiculous level. And so again, like with Giannis, people tend to talk about, hey, well, you said he could never shoot threes. No, we wanted him to be able to make meaningful threes as his career went on, as opposed to the year before we arrived, they were a 15-win team. Well, the next year, the team won 41 with meaningful games. And that is a huge part of a player's growth, right? Is playing in a lot of meaningful games.
Yeah, and the biggest takeaway that I took from that, because it's loaded, but you coached him where he was at, not where you wanted him to be. You coached him where he was at, and you got him on a path that was going to get him to where you guys all knew he could eventually be at and become. And I think that's phenomenal. And coaches who have that foresight and have that ability and have that vision, as you mentioned, I think that's deep. And I think that's something that I hope our other coaches who are viewers of this show can do, and work with the players where they're at and get them on that trajectory to have that greatness and be that 1%.
Yeah, no, that's what you're always trying to improve. You're always trying to get better. And that's players, coaches, organizations, schools, whatever, you name it. I mean, that's, like I said at the beginning, you win a championship. Okay, it's not done. It's not, if you're done just because you won a championship, then you probably were doing the wrong thing to begin with, and you caught lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do is each year get better and better and better. And, I can tell you that I've had experiences with a lot of people that continue to help me. I mean, again, I'll go back to some of my time, getting time to spend with guys like a Jamal Crawford in Phoenix and learn from him and see how he sees the game, and have conversations with him about his experiences, and not only basketball, but life.
Right.
It helped me as a person, as a coach. And I know I got better that year just going through some of those experiences. And I'd been in the league for 23 years, and I was seeing things that I was like, okay, this is new to me, or this is interesting. And so again, trying to help those guys grow. And a lot of those guys have gone on to different things. But like I said, for me personally, there were a lot of conversations, and I referenced Jamal specifically because what an amazing man who's done amazing things in his career, but also on and off the court. So, hey, let's grow. And where are we going?
Yeah, see, and I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Coach Joe Prunty. Again, we're using the hashtag three-time NBA champ JP. Coach, it's been phenomenal to have you, and I'd love to continue this conversation. Let's have you back on the show again because it's been insightful, it's been compelling. There's been a lot of nuggets. There's been a lot of tools for individuals' toolbox to help them grow and evolve and empower individuals. It's been wonderful, and I appreciate you for your time, and thanks so much for coming on, my friend.
My pleasure, Scott. Really enjoyed it.
I hope we can do it again here in the very near future. And I'm not just saying that because you're on here now. Let's put it in our schedules to where we can sit and do this again because this has been very, very empowering. And I hope that everybody has taken something from it.
Great. Sounds good. I like the idea.
All right. Well, let's do it. And all the best to you and your family. Stay safe, stay healthy, and continue to grow and evolve. And I know you're going to be doing special things here in the very near future.
Thanks, Scott. All the best to you too.
All right, buddy. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Joe Prunty, phenomenal character, phenomenal human being, and an outstanding coach. So hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we're going to continue to bring outstanding quality guests to you each week. And Coach Prunty, again, I thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
God bless.
Bring it in. Thank you for watching the Coach Scott Field Show, the nation's #1 digital coaches show. This DBNA television broadcast is a Roar Media production. Don't forget to subscribe to the Coach's YouTube channel. Like and follow him on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have yourself dressed and ready to go in the locker room for the next exciting show coming soon. Thank you for watching the Coach Scott Field Show, the nation's #1 digital coaches show. This DBNA television broadcast is a Roar Media production.